Welcome to Weird Real Life Stories with Gina Gayle Gray, true tales of spirit, synchronicity, and soul wisdom. I'm Gina, freedom coach, counselor, and oracle, and this is where the unexplainable finds a voice. Here we tell stories that don't fit inside logic, stories like messages from the beyond, mystical encounters with nature, and moments so wild they make you question everything, and yet feel more real than anything else. These are the stories that expand your mind, open your heart, and remind you that the invisible threads are always working in your favor. If you've ever felt something, seen something, or just known something others couldn't explain, you're not alone. You're not crazy. You're connected. This is your safe space to trust what you feel, speak what you know, and remember who you truly are. Let's begin. Welcome back to Weird Real Life Stories with Gina Gayle Gray. I'm your host, I'm Gina, and this is a show where I and others will tell about weird experiences that you have had in your life that can't be explained away. They're fantastic, they're multidimensional, we've all had these experiences. And there is so much to unpack within those, and there is so much soul information. And with yesterday's eclipse and this lunar experience and all of the magical things happening in the cosmos, I think it's more important now than ever to bring these stories to life, bring these stories out of the closet and out of the hidden places that we've all stuffed them. Some people have had experiences and stories and happenings when they were in young childhood, some later in life, some yesterday. So it doesn't matter when. If you've ever had an experience that is so strange, yet so intentional, and you felt like it was coming from the multiverse, and you felt like it was speaking directly to your soul, I want to hear about it. And today I have one such story from someone that I recently met. I did a fantastic sacred journey tour to Egypt, my first time ever, and met 42 incredible people, had beautiful experiences. And there was one person in particular who somehow we kept showing up, sitting next to each other on the bus or on the way to the sacred sites, at the sacred sites. And it was an immediate connection. And this person I adore. Her name is Crystal Connelly. And I am going to ask her today. She has agreed to share a story that is incredibly unbelievable, yet very true. And a little bit about Crystal. She is a spiritual seeker. She is an intuitive healer. She practices multiple modalities. She, like so many of us, she got into some of the modalities that she uses in an attempt to heal herself. And at the end of the day, I believe that everyone is a healer, but I only believe that everyone is a healer of self. And I really appreciate it when I meet someone who can prove that they have done that work. Before offering themselves as a healer to the rest of the world, they can prove that they have done the healing themselves. And Crystal is one such person, and she now coaches and supports others with several tools. So I encourage you, if her story today resonates with you, get in touch with her, do some work with her, let her hypnotize you, let her guide you with some of her magical tools. I think you'll want to after you hear her story today. So welcome to my show, Crystal. It is so nice to see you today.
Thank you so much, Gina. What a wonderful opening and introduction. I appreciate the space that you hold here for us to share our journeys together. And you're right, it's so important today to have this space to be able to talk about things that have happened in our lives.
Yeah, because once we talk about them, once we remember them, there's more. There's always more. And there's always relevance too. But would you agree that a lot of times we stuff them, or we forget them, or we hide them away or tuck them away, or because we weren't heard, no one wanted to listen, or no one could listen? Is that one
Oh,
of the reasons? Hmm.
I fully agree with that because that was my story in the story that I'm going to tell today. I have many of them unfolded, but this one was particular. It was big. And it also, because of the way that I didn't have a foundation to be able to talk about it, share it with others, and I didn't have a spiritual foundation to understand it, I tried to cart it away and I tried to numb out from it. And all it did was give me more symptoms that came up through my life that I had to then try to unpack. So that's how it turned into a healing journey. Is I couldn't fight it any longer. It kept reoccurring in some form or another.
Yeah. Well, I want to prepare the people listening for what this story is about, because this is, you don't meet very many people. I haven't met very many people in all of my travels with a lot of spiritual people at different levels. I've been living in Mexico for 4 years now, so a lot of spiritual people. Very rarely do you meet someone who actually lost time in their own life for up to 3 days. And this is Crystal's story. This is the story that she's going to share. And this was not a plant medicine journey. This was not a medicine induced journey. This was not a anyway, it's so fantastic. She has so much coherence about it now, but didn't. So I'm going to invite you now, Crystal. Tell us this story about how you actually lost time with your life. I think it was mind, body, and soul for those 3 nights and days.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yes. So I'll just sort of jump in to the best recollection that I can remember, how and try to keep it as, authentic and, have as much integrity as possible with the storyline. I was with some people. I was living in San Francisco. It was in the late 98 or 99, was the time era. And we were going to a friend's house for an after party. The clubs had closed down. We had been dancing. We went to this after party. It was at a small house I'd never been to before. It was with people I only met that night. I was also with a boyfriend at the time who was with me. And we got to their house. I was feeling up, or in my life in general, I was feeling very uncomfortable, just uncomfortable with everything, very uncomfortable in my body, very uncomfortable with just a lot of aspects of myself. That night, we got to a small apartment off of a little alleyway right in the heart of San Francisco. And I was sitting on a couch, and there was people sitting next to me on the couch, and there was a few people in the room. And I started getting really uncomfortable in my skin, feeling very almost like I was going to have a little bit of an anxiety attack. And I remember my heart palpitating. And then that was the last thing I remember. The next thing I was aware of was I was in a place that was illuminated with what looked like a sunset. And the sunset was off in the distance. And all of the lighting of where I was standing on the edge of this cliff that looked like water was, it looked like, I always say it looked like the inside of Winnie the Pooh's house. It was very warm, very lovely. There were other people and or beings, even though I don't remember anyone's bodies. I don't remember having a body. I don't remember them having a body. I remember I felt joyful, playful, happy, like blissed out. Mm-hmm. And then the next thing that happened was I remembered life. I remembered the earth. I remembered the world. And when I did that, I started shooting back like I was falling. And this area that I was in was falling away. And the people or group that I was with were chanting my name, Crystal, don't go. And they were saying my name, Crystal, don't go, Crystal, don't go. And then one started to follow me. It was a male, and he was coming with me. And I said, you can't come with me. Don't follow. It's not safe for you to come where I'm going. So I fell. And as I'm falling, the next thing I recognized that was happening in my body was I was just enough away from my body where I was able to witness my mind remembering my reality. And as I did that, my reality was being kind of painted in, literally. The walls and everything that, as I was remembering it, was starting to be painted into my reality. And then I heard voices, and it turns out it was people in the house I was in. I sat down on the couch on a Friday night. So when I came to, I sat up on that couch and I watched the walls fill in. And I started to remember voices of other people in body. I looked down and I watched my body fill in as my mind remembered it. And I kept trying to stop the process or slow the process, and I couldn't. It was like files or dominoes. Each thing that I remembered was attached to another thing that I remembered, and they were stacked together and connected. So once one went, it was like they all kind of fell in together. And what I was aware of too was that my memory was definitely attached to my reality. I was creating it through the conditions of me knowing it. And that was what was really kind of shocking. So I sat up off this couch and I turned, and there was a woman in the kitchen, and she yelled. She screamed. I scared her. And she went, "What the hell are you still doing here on this couch?" She recognized me. And I thought, oh, she's the one that I sat down with on Friday night. I didn't know what day it was yet. So I got up, collected my things, and all I could think is, get out of the house. I was in a full-blown panic attack. Get out of the house. So I got out of the house and I stumbled out into the street, and I looked and I saw something I recognized. It was my car. I had to start remembering where I was and what I had to do. And I thought, well, there's my car. Do I have keys? Yes, I have keys. And I remember how to drive it. Yes, I can remember how to drive it. It's a little like the Matrix where you see it get downloaded. It was very much like that. So I got to my car. I couldn't drive all the way home at the time. It was too far. It was across the bridge. So I drove a few blocks to a friend's house. And when I got out of the car, I parked it. I was shakily got up to the door, knocked on the door, and they opened it. It was my friend, good friends, him and his girlfriend. And he said, "Whoa, what happened to you? What's wrong?" And he pulled me inside and sat me on the couch, and I couldn't speak. I didn't have any words for what I had just experienced. And he said, we've been looking for you. Your boyfriend's looking for you. I said, "What day is it?" He said, "It's Monday." And I didn't have any awareness of what to do with that information. And so that was kind of the bulk of what happened. A lot of things happened after that, but that was the moment where I realized I didn't have anyone to tell what I had just experienced. And the main thing that scared me the most, I think, at the time, and it doesn't frighten me now, was that I realized just how much we do create our own reality, that my body was creating it. Hold that at that time. I couldn't hold that much information that literally, I didn't have a way to land in my body about how literal that was. And so that part was a little too hard for me it was a lot to unpack.
Yeah. Yeah. Understandable.
Yeah.
Even hearing it, and now I've heard it a couple of times, and each time I hear it, I'm more mesmerized by that experience, because how is that even possible? It has so many levels and so many layers to it. And I think it's really interesting when you talk about the coming back into your body and it happening in that Matrix, like the way it's depicted in the movies, The Matrix, that putting it all back together, and then your awareness of the fact that the mind is creating the reality. It's a lot to wrap around. It's a lot to. So, how did you even begin to to put all of this together? How long did it take you to start putting the pieces of what you believe may have happened? How long did it take you to start putting that together?
I thought it, which was difficult. It made it more difficult. I didn't know that I was making it more difficult. I was trying to get away from the thoughts. I was trying to get grounded back in a reality that I couldn't find any longer. I felt unsafe and unsure about my reality. And I was too frightened to tell anyone, because I thought, if I express this, what will happen to me? Who will understand this? I wasn't at that time, now I am, involved in any kind of spiritual practice, grounding practice, or people that understood anything outside of, their 3D matrix. So um, it was quite a few years that I just struggled with an internal dialogue of what that meant for me. And not knowing that by turning away from that experience and trying to muffle it as opposed to express it was giving me other symptoms that were popping up. Like uh, I felt like I had a panic disorder, right? Which wasn't true. I find out later on that that wasn't true. I found out, and it was just me trying to suppress the emotions and feelings that were coming up as opposed to handling them. So I didn't know how. I didn't know how. And so, and I even tried numbing out with alcohol to try to muffle the sounds, to try to get some clarity about what happened. And none of those things were working, and it wasn't until several years later when I kind of hit a bottom with all of that, that I then turned and started to actually work on me. And that was the key place of the surrendering and the working on myself. And then over the last 18 years, I've been doing that consistently. And now I can look at those things and unpack them. I may not know everything about them, but I understand more now because I have a foundation to actually set it on. And I feel like I have enough awareness where I'm not afraid of my feelings anymore, like I used to be, and those little moments I used to have anxiety proved to be like almost like its way of showing up in my body. Because since then I've had a few more experiences where anxiety has come in and then it showed itself as a gift as opposed to what we've labeled anxiety. And that when I unpack that, I'm like, oh, so these were gifts that were starting to come in for me, not the other way around. I just didn't understand it at the time.
Yeah. When you talk about you spent so much time numbing out and trying to run away from the remembering of this experience, did you if you don't mind, I mean, and you don't have to answer, but how were you numbing out? Was it alcohol? Was it alcohol and drugs? Was it the psychedelic? Because the experience that you had, it sounds a lot like the experiences you hear people tell with psychedelic experiences.
Right.
And was any of that a part of your numbing out, or did you get to have a psychedelic experience before?
I did have a couple psychedelic experiences before that, and this was not that. Right? So I
Mhm.
knew the difference. That was one thing. After that moment, I don't think I've ever taken a psychedelic since because I just was always trying to get grounded back in reality. And I always felt a little up here as opposed to having any kind of grounding skills. So I did numb out with alcohol. That was a main number, which actually ended up giving me more anxiety and causing more problems. And you just don't know that when you're reaching for the only tool in your toolbox that you've got. So that was a part of it. And then eventually that stops working as well. But along the way, some other things were coming up. There were other symptoms that were showing themselves and gifts, I believe, that were trying to enter into my life in a sequence. And I just didn't know how to unpack them. At one point, I went so far down the rabbit hole of understanding that I was creating my own reality. I made myself completely responsible for all of the world pain. And it was so heavy to think I was responsible for the wars, the strife, and all of the flooding of the more denser frequencies and denser areas of our reality. I would just go to them in my mind and hold responsibility for them. Not, and it was a lot to carry. And that almost broke me, when I thought, okay, so let's think about if I'm in control of my reality. It didn't go so well for me.
Right.
Because I couldn't hold it. That wasn't mine to hold. I didn't know that.
Yeah. Yeah. So have you since moved beyond that and come to the realization that no one person is responsible for everything happening in this
Yes.
reality? Yeah.
That's the beautiful part about it. So now what I look at is that we are all responsible. And if I go in, that's where my most valued grounding asset is within myself. It's not outside of myself. And now I know to reach for things that are in me instead of outside of me, that it comes inside first. And that's been a very, it was a long journey to get there to understand how that was for me. But I just stopped by, slowing down and getting into group commitments with people, having a spiritual advisor, right? Having someone to talk to, having a counselor. I went and got some free counseling at the women's center because someone suggested. And all of these little pieces just started to really support me as a whole being again, and it's what I needed was support.
And I'm so glad you mentioned that, because that is more important. I believe that is more important today than ever, because so many people are having these spiritual awakenings showing up in however multiple ways. Children are coming in that are already extremely gifted, and the issue of finding a proper and appropriate guide and support is worth the due diligence that it takes to find the right people, because so much has gone on. There's been so much spiritual bypassing, and there's been so much takeover of the spiritual work, the spiritual growth. And it's been one interesting thing that I've noticed since I started doing energy work and moving more into spiritual stuff and working more with the emotional body and the spiritual body. I've found myself in a lot of groups with a lot of people who have been, and are teaching and practicing spirituality in different ways and for different amounts of time. And so this one thing that I'm a biofield tuning practitioner, and one of the first things that we do in biofield tuning, your biofield is your actual plasma field, your aura, your bubble, your energy field. There's so many ways that it's languaged. The most important thing in the first step with every biofield tuning session is to get in the person's earth star and ground them. And I have a little way of, that's my very first assessment with them, because we want to attach the earth star to the earth, which is really important. A lot of people think they're grounded, but when I put the forks in their field and on their body, I'm told otherwise. And so it's just super important. And I just make them aware of the fact you can do a little more grounding. These same people, once they remember what it feels like to actually be grounded and be deeply rooted in Gaia, then when I go up to their sun star and connect their sun star to the central sun behind the sun, it's like it happens just immediately. So that tells me, and then I can kind of visualize people who spend so much time playing in the too much time playing in the spiritual realm and don't follow through with the commitment to reconnect with their body and follow through with the commitment of what, in my opinion, having a body, you wake up every morning, you have a body, it's a responsibility. You're still in a body, you're still here, you're still in physicality, so there is responsibility to that. So go ahead, play in the spiritual realm, but do what you did and do the hard work to bring all of those pieces back and put the thing back together. And your experience, you're setting the example of this is how you do it. It's not magical, it's not immediate, and sometimes souls remember it's so much more fun out there. Sometimes astral traveling and quantum traveling and journeying, however you look at it, it can be a lot easier, and sometimes a little, even Ram Dass said, um, dying's easy, living's the hard part.
Yeah.
And so your beautiful story of, and you're still working on it. How are you, will you please come back so we can get into a little deeper? I want to know how you used all the tools that you use now to help others and yourself, how those showed up to help you reintegrate all of this back into your physical body, because you're here now and you're helping others with all of the experiences that they have in such a sweet, beautiful, gentle, pure way. I adore the way you show up and your sweet nature, because it's, and then you tell this story and it's like, oh, she's not just a sweet young lady. She went through it and she came back. So you're a spiritual badass. And
Oh.
I connect with spiritual badasses. So,
Mhm.
um, is there anything you can tell us quickly that was your favorite tool you used to help integrate back into your body?
As the tools started to come in, they were coming in this same kind of format in a way, of that first experience just lessened. They had the same signatures in my body. So when they came in and I was able to actually ground them out, which is the first thing, ground those frequencies that come through the body out, then inside that was like a tool kit that was unpacked. And oh, I've got something else I can share with someone. This is what works for me. And so I gravitated towards those tools. And that's what I use to help others, because I found them, they helped me so immensely that now I'm like, these need to be shared. They need to be talked about. We need to unpack these. So yeah, I would love to come back and unpack some more of those. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And I say aho, sister, to that, because using the tools that work for you and then offering them to others, because it's so complex now. There is so much to we can't make assumptions. We can't put anybody into a box or any of the shapes anymore. It is too complex, and we are multidimensional, and the veil is thin, and all of this stuff. So I want to thank you for being one of those people who is helping guide people into their spiritual growth, with taking the responsibility for the spiritual hygiene and the responsibility for staying connected in the body, boots on the ground, doing the hard work. That's a true leader in my mind, in my heart. So thank you for being that. And let's continue next episode. Let's have you back next episode so that we can. I have so many questions, because where was, number one question, where was your body during this time? Because it wasn't on that sofa, because they would have noticed. They were shocked when you showed back up. So I want everybody to think about that and think about the magical, what does that mean? And be curious with me. Where was her body during that time?
Yeah.
This
Yeah,
is,
good questions, right? Yeah, good questions. It sparks for good conversation the few times I'm able to unpack it with people. So
yeah. And I say, if you want better answers, ask better questions. So until next time, and if you have a story, if you have an incredible, weird, real life story that you want to share with me, get in touch with me. Come on, and let's open up these stories so that others can feel okay to tell them, and we can help each other to try to figure out what in the world do they mean, and how can we use them for our soul to grow into this life that we're creating starting today. Till next time, thank you. Bye-bye. Thank you for walking through the mystery with me on Weird Real Life Stories. I hope today's story stirred something sacred in you, something that reminds you your experiences matter, even the ones you can't explain. If your soul whispered yes at any point, share this episode with someone who needs to hear it. And be sure to tune in every first and third Wednesday at noon Pacific on Transformation Talk Radio for more true tales of spirit, synchronicity, and soul wisdom. To explore my holistic coaching, retreats, or tools for healing mind, body, and soul, visit anywheremindbodysoul.com. And if you're ready to go even deeper, my channeled book with my son Spencer, Listen to the Silence, Messages and Miracles from Spencer Who Never Spoke Words, is waiting for you at listentothesilence.org. You're not crazy, you're connected, and the story is just beginning.